Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the second day of World.now. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Anirudh Arikarebula and Robert Prahovich. They will give you the top 10 automated administrative tasks that will make your life easier. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Erica. So we're really excited to have you guys here. My name is Ani. I am the product manager for the Python SDK, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Rob.
Hi, my name is Robert Prochowicz. I am a senior sales engineer based in Poland, supporting our customers in the Nordics countries.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. So I'll share my screen to get us started. So again, we're really excited to have you guys here. We have some very exciting content to share with you guys. So hopefully you have seen our day one session for Python for automation. There we introduce all of the new system administration capabilities in our new Mysterio package. So the purpose of today's session is going to be to do a deep dive into that Mysterio package, show you guys how to install it, all the prerequisites, and also to do a deep analysis of our classes, modules, and functions that we offer you. And then at the end of the presentation, we have a collection of demos that Rob and I have put together. They're amazing use cases, really powerful use cases of administration tasks that you can now accomplish using Python and the Mysterio package. So let's jump right into it. Um, so to get started, the prerequisites you need with the Mysterio package is to have Python 3.6 or higher. You'll also need the MicroStrategy 2019 version update 4 or higher. So we highly recommend you get 2021 because then you'll have all of the latest functionality of the package. This is because the Python modules are REST API dependent. So obviously all of the latest REST APIs will be on 2021. If you go back to 2020, there may be some REST API endpoints that are not available, and therefore those functionalities will not work. So we highly recommend you upgrade to 2021. To install the package, you can install it from PyPy using the pip install command. We don't recommend using an Anaconda environment, but rather a Python virtual environment. You can use any preferred IDE, whether that be PyCharm, VS Code, Idle, or Jupyter Notebook. We highly recommend using Jupyter Notebook because it's a great interface for using Mysterio. But also, when we released the data science version of this product, we also released the Jupyter Notebook connector, which makes it very easy to connect to your MicroStrategy environment and import and export data into your Python data frames. So let's at this point jump straight into the documentation because this is the meat of our product, right? This is where you'll find all the information on the new modules we released, all the classes you can use, and all the functions, right? So of the six, so we released six new administrative workflows. They are server application management, user management, security role privileges, subscription management, and also library dossier management. So to start off server module, you have two classes, cluster class and the server settings class. And within it are all the relevant functions to deliver a server management workflow. So the functions within the package are intuitively named to achieve common administrative tasks. So within the cluster, you can see you can list application, list nodes, start and stop a service. And then within the server settings class, you can fetch the environment settings, update it, export, import, etc. Same goes for application module, right? So all of the functionality related to application management is inbuilt into a function, such as load, unload, register, unregister, and these functions are meant to be common tasks that you can write in one line of code, as simple as that. Um, with applications, you can also take all of your actions on the settings. You can export, import, and update them. um, Moving on to user management, this is a big one because we know a lot of our customers have a large number of users, and it could be very tedious if you had to do manual maintenance of those, right? So we have a user class and a user group class where you can achieve a lot. You can alter their properties, add them to user groups, assign security roles, create and delete, etc. I haven't listed all the functions here because it would take up a lot of space, but the most important thing about this is that when we introduce a MicroStrategy object to the MysterioPy package, each of those objects will have a function to set permissions or set custom permissions. This is your ACL control. So a user or a user group, which is a MicroStrategy object, within these classes, you have the set permissions set custom permissions. This allows you to manage all of the ACLs. On the other hand, for security role and privileges, we have a separate class for those. And this makes it very easy to maintain your security roles or privileges. For example, when you look at the security role class, you can easily create, alter, and delete existing security roles. And in one line of code, you can grant a particular security role to a user or user group across any application. It's so easy, and also you can do things like listing members for that security role. Same goes for privileges. We have a privilege class so that you can add a specific privilege to a user group or revoke them. Next, I wanted to talk about subscription modules, library, and dossier modules. So with subscriptions right now, we can only create email subscriptions. As the REST API layer continues to grow and harden, we will add these functionalities into the subscription module. But you can also manage recipients and owners. With library, you can publish, unpublish dossiers and documents. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was how to leverage other REST APIs with the Mysterio package. So, as you may have seen in the day one Python for automation session, we don't cover all of the REST APIs within the Mysterio package. So you can still leverage them. You can create custom functions calling those REST APIs for whatever use case you have. So if you see on the left-hand side of the slide here, we are creating a custom function to get subscriptions using the API for subscriptions. But we also are creating a custom function to create an authentication layer to connect to our environment. However, this is quite long, this is quite arduous and redundant because you can leverage the connection class we have in the Mysterio package, import that, create that connection object, and pass it into your custom function. What this results in is a much more efficient code and much more efficient execution. So we want you to know and be aware that even if the task you're trying to achieve is not available in Mysterio, you can still accomplish it maybe with another REST API, and you can use the advantages of the Mysterio package since all of those modules are available to you. So now we want to jump straight into the demos we have for you. We're really excited about these demos because Rob and I have been working hard to create these powerful use cases. So to start us off, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Rob to show his demos.
Thanks, Ani. All right. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. Good. All right. So I will show you some examples of smart utilization of Mysterio and REST APIs. So my first example is about creating a sandbox project. I have created a Python script for that a year ago. You can find it on community. By the way, on community, you can find quite a few examples of usage of Python REST API or Mysterio. So what I wanted to achieve here was, sometimes there is an idea for a new project, a new application, and you need to separate it completely from your other projects. So you need to create a project, you need to create a user group, a security role. You can combine it together, and it's a tedious work. If you do it often, you would like to have a script. You just hit enter, you provide a name of the project, and the rest would be done automatically. So as I said, a year ago, I've created a script like that with REST API in Python, and it's around 200 lines of code. My Mysterio was not able to do all of this, so I just wrote it in REST API. And now, fast forward 1 year, Mysterio can do this thing. So right now, I can do the same thing with 20 lines of code. So it will create a project, it will create a user, it will create a user group, it will create a security role, it will handle all the security access rights. So let's take a closer look at each part. Okay, so first, just importing all the libraries from Mysterio. Then I provide a name of a project. Let's call it W1. Then I connect to MicroStrategy. Then I establish an object environment. So if I can check what projects are currently loaded. So there are 2 projects, tutorial and platform analytics. Next step is to create a new project. You see new application, and I just pass to this function name, which is this W1. And after a moment, a new project is successfully created and it has a new ID. Great. So then the script goes to the next step. So it creates a new user. All of the objects will have the same name, W1. So a new user, W1, a new user group, W1. And then the security role. For that one, let me just maybe refresh my connection. So a security role. All the privileges that this user can do, like export to PDF or drill down and so on and so on. They have IDs. If you don't know what ID 13 means, you can list it with this privilege list privileges. So you can see that ID 5, for example, allows using architect editors. All right. Okay, so after my security role was created, what I would do, I revoke access to this new project to a user group everyone. That's typical for MicroStrategy, that user group everyone gets access to new projects. I don't want that. So I remove everyone from accessing my new project. And next step, I have created a group, I have created a project, I have created a security role. So with those 3 lines, actually with this 1 line, I'm joining all of this together. So my user group can access a project with my security role. Okay, so 1 line done. And then last step, since I revoked all the users from everyone to access this project, then my new user doesn't have access to shared reports. So I'm fixing this here. So my shared reports has this ID, as in all MicroStrategy projects. The ID is always the same. So I set permission to this new group to access shared reports. Easy. It will take 1 minute to do all of those steps. Okay, and next example. Next example is about checking permissions or checking parent-child relationships between users and user groups. As you know, probably in MicroStrategy, a group of users like MicroStrategy Web Reporter can have a children group like international users. And then they have this group can have also subgroups and subgroups and subgroups with big implementations with thousands of users. This can be really complex. I've seen structures with 8,000 folders. So it's complex. It's not easy to understand what's going on, especially when one branch, one subgroup can have subgroups from other branches, and this group can have branches from other branches. So then if you have this group international users, this group has access to a particular sensitive dossier. It can be tricky to find out who can really access this dossier, having in mind that there are many subgroups in this tree structure. So for that reason, I again wrote a Python script that goes through iterations through every group and subgroup and checks the parent-child relationship and creates an overview of everything. So again, I wrote it some time ago with just REST APIs, and now fast forward, Mysterio can do some of this stuff. So I simplified this with Mysterio on this tab. So this one let's run. So I'm importing the libraries, I'm establishing a connection. This part, actually, I could remove. So I could remove almost 60 lines of code because I've used Mysterio. So I removed 60 lines, I've added 5 lines. Nice, I've simplified my code. So those functions handle those iterations. So I need to import them. Then I run this logic going through each group and subgroup. So you see it checks it's going down through every branch of groups. And as a result, it produces a few CSV files for groups, user groups, parent-child relationships. So what I've done, I created a dossier, a simple dossier. Let me hide this. Let me hide this so it will be better visible. All right. I have created a simple dossier. I imported those CSV files. So now I can see that mobile users has 21 users, including all the subgroups going down every possible branch. On the other hand, I can look at this from the user perspectives. I have my users. So I see that business user is disabled, but it belongs to 6 groups, either directly or indirectly through all of those complex combinations of groups and subgroups. All right, so now back to you, I think, Annie.
Thank you, Robert. Those are really powerful use cases, I think. So I want to share some more simpler use cases that you can achieve as well using the Mysterio package. So here you can see that I am importing all of my libraries and modules and also instantiating my environment variables so that I can now then connect to my environment. And now this is a very popular use case that I wanted to go over again because many of our customers have user catalogs in a data warehouse outside of MicroStrategy, right? And with the power of Python, you can access these data warehouses using many Python libraries like SQL Alchemy or PyODBC. But here I've created a local data warehouse where I've included content on information about new employees for a company, right? So I connect to my database, and now I can very easily iterate through my database and create those new user accounts. And you can see this is actually the logic to connect to the database and iterate through um, the database. But this is all you need to actually create the user. I am passing the connection variable, the username of the employee, full name, ID, and then the parameter if they require a new password, which I've set to false. So you can see very easily, very quickly, we're creating all of the users. And then again, in 3 lines of code, I am assigning them to an administrator group with a system administrator security role. And you can see here, I'm just iterating through my new user list and then one function to add to user group, right? Um, so we can see here all of these users have now been assigned to an administrator. Now, another use case, some information that is not usually provided by MicroStrategy, but can easily be gathered using Python, is to list all privileges for active users. Now, of course, I can do this for all the users in my environment, but for the purposes of the demo, it would take too long. But I would like to do it for the new users I've created, right? So um, I bring in those new users. I checked if they're active, and I know that if their property of enabled is true, right? And then for all I have to do is iterate through that list of users and list out the properties of the user object. Now, this is so great because I'm just accessing the attributes of the user object. So I'm saying listing user ID, username, and privileges, right? So there's nothing else required to extract that information. So once I run this and we see all of our privileges, you can see here is very long um, dictionary, but because we're listing all the privileges, but you can see here is that I have the ID of the user, the name, username, and then all the privileges. Because they have the system administrator security role, there's a ton of privileges, but you can see that they've got the security role from, they have it for the project MicroStrategy tutorial, and in the group, they're located in the administrator group. And of course, you can see all of the privileges name and the ID of the privileges. And now, of course, the great thing about this is that it's in a dictionary format, so you can easily extract the information you'd like. And like Robert has shown, you can export all this information into a dossier that you can use for maintaining your environment. So it's very practical and very useful for those such use cases. Next, I'd like to show you how to list security roles per user. And for this, I've created a custom function. Like I mentioned in my PowerPoint slide, when you create these custom functions, you can leverage still your Mysterio package. So here I am passing in the connection object, all of the user group names and IDs. And then as in the use case Robert showed, where we could have many subgroups within one user group, um, I have included a parameter to include subgroups. I've set it to false for now, but um, what this is looking for is that in in a particular user group, say for example administrator, we are going to list out the security roles for each user, and if it's a user group element in within that group, then we're going to list out the security role for that user group. So you can see here in this logic, as I'm iterating through the members, if the element is a in the members list is a subgroup, then we list a subgroup security role. If the element is a user, then we list a user security role. So you can see here. And then the output is again just going to be a dictionary with all of the information. So if I run this and then list the security role per user for the administrator group, we can see we're gathering all the objects from the administrator group and then bam, we have all of the security roles. So it's really fast, it's very useful. Obviously, it will depend on the size of your environment. Here, I'm just displaying 7 users. If you have thousands, it could take minutes, uh, a couple minutes. So here, what we see is the name Bradley, his username, and his security role for the MicroStrategy tutorial environment is system administrator, and this is inherited true from the administrator group. So you can gather a lot of insight from these dictionary outputs, and of course, again, um, for practical use, you can export this information to a dossier so you can easily maintain your environments. The next use case I'd like to show you is um, really great for versioning control, right? So a lot of us have large environments that a lot of changes occur to constantly, right? So it's important for us to take snapshots and have backups of all the settings that we have implemented. So here in less than 10 lines of code, excluding the comment sections, um, we are exporting all of the settings for each project with the timestamp as well as the settings for the environment. You can export to a JSON, CSV, or pickle file, but here I'm doing JSON. Um, and you can see here um, very fast. And then if I go to my storage location, you can see here all the projects environment with the timestamp. And if I open it, it's a JSON file where if I actually wanted to create edits, make changes to my settings, I can make the edits on this JSON file and then import it back using a Python function that we have in Mysterio. So if for say that tomorrow I make a sudden change to my settings and it breaks my environment, I can restore the settings by importing this old uh, settings file. So that's a really great use case for administrators so that you can maintain and have versioning control of your environments. And then the last is kind of a cool use case is getting Dossier filters. This is just to show what is the potential that we have with this product. So here I'm creating a custom function for calling the Dossier definition API, and it returns a JSON where I can just extract the filter information. So here I run the custom function and then I iterate through, pick one dossier, and then show all of the filters. So here you can see I've selected the campaign finance dossier. This is the attribute and metric that I filtered Democratic Republicans on. So these are the demos we have. I hope that you guys could see and get a sense for the power of the Mysterio package. I am going to return to the PowerPoint, and Robert will be talking about 3 more use cases to end the presentation.
Actually, I want to show it in my
Sure.
environment. So Annie showed you a use case where he created new users. This is, we can say, a bit similar. This is about deleting users, also based on some external catalog. Like you check in LDAP or you check in a database or in some files, and based on that, you delete or disable users. So let's go. I'm importing libraries, I'm connecting to environment. I'm checking all the users that are enabled in my small environment. I have just like 20 users that are enabled. So I see those IDs here. I can preview them like those 5 examples of those users. Okay, so those are enabled users in MicroStrategy. Now I want to compare it with a list of inactive users, as I said, like imported from LDAP. For simplicity, I just have 2 users that I want to disable. And this, with this function, I'm just checking. So for each inactive user, so this and this, I check if this inactive users is on this list. If it is on this list, I want to disable it. So I just download this user and I use user alter enabled false. Let's see. Ding, ding, two users were enabled. Now they are disabled. Very, very fast. Okay, next use case is about migrating narrowcast services to distribution services. So many of our customers are still using narrowcast server, even if it is a deprecated product. It's still powerful and useful, but more and more customers would like to move completely to distribution services. And we can help automate it. So first, you would like to run this SQL code against your narrowcast server database. So you run it either in a SQL editor or run it here from Jupyter Notebook. You get information about each service, service ID, service name, some information about services. This SQL will help you understand for each service who are the recipients of this narrowcast service and what are the preferences. So at the end, I mean, when you execute this SQL code, you will get a list of service ID, username, email. User email is important in this case, and a column called mrpref object. So if you have a security set on, I don't know, bank branch ID or retail store ID that this user can see only this branch ID, you can use this information for your subscription. Again, you can either connect directly to a narrowcast database or get information from a CSV file. I have a CSV file with some emails from narrowcasts for one service. Let's imagine a situation you want to move one service of narrowcast to distribution services with all the emails. So I already have information about narrowcast emails for one service. So now I connect to MicroStrategy. I'm connected. Now I check MicroStrategy metadata users. Some of them have emails and always one email is default. So what I'm going to do is to map narrowcast email and MicroStrategy user email and to just replicate this subscription to those emails that I will find. So I run this. And now those are users from MicroStrategy metadata. I have 5 and they have emails. Those are users from narrowcast. So I see those emails. So now I want to match that my service from narrowcast would be copied to the same users in MicroStrategy. So prochovic@gmail.com, prochovic@gmail.com. I will check what are the common elements on both lists. There are 3. All right, so now I can create a subscription with Mysterio. So I create an email subscription. Who will get this subscription? Those 3 users, because they exist on both environments. What's the content? I hard-coded the content. You can also find the content ID in narrowcast database and the report ID or document ID and provide it here. Then I need to provide schedule ID. That's more complex for narrowcast, but maybe could be doable. So I also hard-coded this. Then comes subscription name, the subject of my email. You remember that would be email subscription. Then comes the text in the email and all of those details. So when I click this, and I'm getting an error. but probably change the message. But at the end, you are getting email subscription copied from narrowcast to distribution services. All right, and the last example is about deleting so-called orphan subscriptions. If you maintain a big MicroStrategy implementation with many users, they create subscriptions, and you don't make cleanups, you may end up with thousands and thousands of subscriptions, and many of them are not used anymore because owners of those subscriptions, people that created those subscriptions, are either deleted, those users, or disabled. So if you want to clean all of those subscriptions that are not needed anymore, you can use this simple workflow. So again, I'm connecting to MicroStrategy. I'm getting information about all enabled users. Those are those users. Then I'm getting information about subscriptions. So those are those subscriptions. So I see the owner of a subscription. So let's see if there is any subscription that is owned by disabled user. No, nothing. All of those users, there are three, 1, 2, 3, are enabled. So let's create a subscription for disabled user with this. Again, I'm getting, what's this error? Anyhow, this would create a subscription for disabled user, and then this piece of code would find this subscription for disabled user and would delete it. So if you have a lot of them, those 4 lines would find all of them and delete them for you. So this will clean up your metadata from unneeded objects. All right, that's it.
All right, thank you, Robert. So that's it for the demos today in the presentation. To answer one question that we receive a lot, these demos will be available on our community and GitHub page. So it will be available for your experimentation shortly, soon after World.
Thank you, guys. It was a great presentation. So we have a ton of questions on the Q&A section. So I'll try to go as fast as I can, but probably if we cannot cover all of them, you guys can all connect to Annie and Robert through the website. So please make sure to reach out. Okay, let's start. Jeff is saying, how does using the Python interface differ from using Command Manager?
Yeah, so Command Manager is it's kind of this black box environment, so you don't really have open source functionality. So the great advantage of Python is that you can import other packages, use other libraries to create your automation workflows, and as well as Python is sort of this full-fledged programming language where you can create complex logic more easily. To assist your complex workflows. And additionally, we have this Python workstation integration going on. So soon you'll be able to execute all of these Python scripts from within workstation very soon. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you, Annie. From Herman, what about LDAP and trusted authentication fields?
So I can take that one as well. So right now we only support standard and LDAP authentication, and there is a parameter within the connection object to allow you to select for that.
Perfect. So next one, is there going to be more modules added in System Manager for the Python scripting and workstations?
Yeah, so right now, what our focus is on providing that functional parity with Command Manager. Once we have that integration into Python Workstation, we'll work on, we have a full roadmap for that so that you can actually trigger these Python script executions from events, schedules, etc. So Right now, the focus is on providing functional parity to Command Manager. And so you can automate schema object creation, application object creation, object manager functionality as well. So stay tuned for all of that. We're working on it. We have a full year ahead of us to deliver all those functionalities.
Thank you, Annie. Will the package be upgraded as often as Workstation?
Yeah, so we can upgrade these packages on monthly releases and quarterly releases. So stay tuned. Like all of these upgrades will be available on PyPy. So you can input that command pip install Mysterio dash dash upgrade, and you'll immediately get the latest version.
Thank you. Next one. What is the recommended way to deploy projects to other environments? Can you automate that with Mysterio?
Yeah, so these projects when you create a connection object, it's an object, standalone object, so you can connect to many environments, and same goes for projects. So when you create an application object, you can assign it to and you can create it to any environment that you have access to.
The next one. Mysterio looks like a powerful tool versus Command Manager. Will Mysterio replace Command Manager in the future? Do you envision having code outlines similar to Command Manager to help build the code?
Yeah, so that's a great question, one that we get a lot. So, yes, the roadmap is to port over all of the functionality in Command Manager into Mysterio. So, as you all know, the REST API layer is something that we've been heavily investing in as a foundation for Workstation. So, when you have that manual component in Workstation, we will couple it with the delivery of the Python module. So you have that automation component. And for every new module we release, same goes for these 6 that we just released, we'll be delivering sample scripts, which offer guidance and guidance and a template so you can achieve certain administrative workflows. So you can find those sample scripts on our GitHub page or within the contents of the package itself when you download it.
Thank you. So I think that we don't have time for any other questions, but it was great to have you guys. Annie, Robert, thank you so much. And thank you all of you guys for attending this session. Our next session in this channel is Jumpstart Your New Application in Workstation. And once again, thanks for joining and see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.